Many people shift into thought leadership from other roles and backgrounds, and I want to explore this transition process more deeply today. I've asked Mark Smith to join me. As you'll soon hear, he earned his PhD in organizational psychology, worked as a researcher, and then found himself drawn into the world of thought leadership. Mark is now the director of HR Thought Leadership for the Society of Human Resource Management, which is often known by its acronym, SHRM. In today's conversation, we'll talk about stumbling into thought leadership, how to make the leap, and how to stand up a thought leadership function. We even talk about building good connections internally and externally. How can thought leadership become a good corporate citizen? I'm Bill Sherman, and you're listening to Leveraging Thought Leadership. Ready? Let's begin. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
So I'm looking forward to talking about thought leadership with you in a couple of instances. And the first one that I want to focus on is your experience of entering the world of thought leadership, because I think it resonates with how a lot of people and professionals are moving into the field. So I'm going to ask you the question straight up. How did you come into the world of thought leadership?
Yeah, and first off, I'm pretty new to this world, so it wasn't until the later part of 2021 that I entered it, and frankly, it wasn't just later part of 21 till I entered it, but until I even really realized what it was. So my background, I'm an organizational psychologist, and so that's why I have my PhD in industrial organizational psychology. And I've been working in HR consulting for years and eventually found my way to SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. And there I was helping to lead the team in the certification exams. And so we certify HR folks, and there are long exams as part of it. As the head of the exam development team, I ended up doing a lot of research about what makes a successful examinee, a research just in the field in general, but also then getting into the marketing side. And frankly, there were lots of things that I ended up doing and was interested in that was marketing, it was communications, and pretty far afield from the director of exam development, which is what my title was. So eventually, after doing that for a few years and the team was growing and everything, my boss had said, you know what, you're really not doing director of exam development. You're kind of doing some other things. And, why don't we change your title accordingly? So it was a little bit of back and forth there, but they had said, okay, you're now the head of HR thought leadership in the organization, and we're going to put you in the research group. And I said, oh, okay. And that was really the first time I had heard of thought leadership in a traditional position title. And so, as people are wont to do, my first thing I did was, when they told me that, is I Googled what is thought leadership, and it kind of came up with some things. And as you know, when you Google something like that, you'll find some things, and you'll find some things that are a little weird, but yeah, I think ultimately I came to the conclusion is, this is something I'm comfortable with, something I'm familiar with. I may not have called it thought leadership, but maybe I should have been calling it thought leadership.
And what you described, that process of curiosity when you were the director of the assessment development, right?
Right.
It sounds like your curiosity was pulling you out into, okay, what do I need to know about comms, or what do I need to know about marketing about this exam? So was it curiosity or another thing that pulled you into those aspects?
I mean, it was curiosity and it was need. I was doing some of the research about like what makes an effective examinee, or what are the benefits of being successful in our exam and in our certification. And there, once you start to get into where does this take you? What are the benefits here? That naturally lends itself into kind of a marketing conversation. And then it was a matter of translating the research results into more of a marketing message. And at that time, where our marketing group was going through some transitions, didn't have much help. And so I eventually said, okay, well, I'll just start writing marketing content and things myself.
Well, and that moves you from sort of the theory or the concept level to an applied level of how do I take these ideas and then use them to create greater impact, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I would say for a while in my career, when I was in HR consulting, there was a lot of research being done, and it was, I don't know if it was research for the research sake, or it was like validation research that we kind of felt obligated to do. And there was no aha, there was no kind of so what associated with it. There was just like, okay, we did this research, maybe we correlated this thing with that thing, and we found statistically significant results, and we were sort of pleased with that. But there was no real, again, so what associated with it. It was just kind of okay, that was sort of a nice to do.
Well, and research can sometimes sit sort of on its own in a bubble rather than connected to the organization and its purposes, goals, and mission, right? And so
Yeah.
I think one of the things that thought leadership can do as a function, and I want to talk about it as a function with you, not only from what you're doing, but since you're inside of SHRM, looking at the thought leadership function from an organizational perspective, I think is important too. But here, you've got to bridge the research out to the audience that needs to hear it, right? It can't
Oh
just
yeah.
sit in a white paper or on the shelf somewhere.
Oh yeah, very, very much so. In fact, before I started in SHRM, so maybe 5 years ago or so, we had a research team, and we were producing a number of white papers, and they were more longer form white papers. You would look at them, and from an academic perspective, you could sort of, it checked a lot of boxes. Oh yeah, the sample size was good, and they talked to a lot of different people, and the report itself was very comprehensive, and it showed everything that was asked and all of the results. But you would spend a fair amount of time digesting that. But at the end of the day, there was no, okay, now what? What am I going
Hmm.
to do with this?
And how do you make it actionable to someone who's on a busy schedule, has limited time to sort of check and assume that all of the research hangs in? They want to assume somebody else has gone through, done the research, and checked that box. Now, what do I do? Right.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of everything that we're doing, everything that we're producing from like a content perspective. It always needs the so what message associated with it, preferably at the beginning and at the end. But just to go through a research exercise and then report on it, the academics are like that. But that's really not who our audience is. Our audience is HR professionals, HR executives, and then at a broader level, general business executives, and kind of everybody else in the workplace. Those are the people that we're trying to affect. And as I list those people, professors in IO psychology programs, professors in HR management programs, they're not one of those people that we care about.
So let's talk about as you've sort of shifted into the thought leadership role. What is it that has shifted in terms of the questions that you're asking, the content that you're creating? How is your perspective shifting?
Yeah. As I said, when I got into the role, I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I wasn't sure what the expectations were. And because this was a new specific role for SHRM, I would say at SHRM we've been engaging a lot of thought leadership, but there was no sort of named director of thought leadership, or no one with thought leadership in the title. And so then it became, okay, if that's to me now, what does that mean? And how can we frame this? Because I can just start doing stuff, but it's not going to really be meaningful if unless people look at me as this is my specific responsibility, or I start to do very, very tangible things that people can see, and they go, oh yes, I recognize that. That's thought leadership. That's what thought leadership at SHRM looks like. And so for me, I know the first thing I wanted to do was write out what the vision is, what really at the broadest level our responsibilities are, and really what our products might look like.
So, talk to me about that vision. What is the vision for the thought leadership function?
Yeah. So I've really started to sketch this out, and for me, it's the coming up with the new ideas in the new direction. Again, we're not a new organization. We're not a new organization for research or for new initiatives or marketing or anything like that. But what does thought leadership look like for me at Sherman? And so that was coming up with the new ideas and the new directions of things, really navigating the organization, because we need communications and we need marketing and we need the other folks in research and we need all of the executives to kind of be on board. And so understanding the players involved and who needs awareness, who needs approval, who are the people who are going to be sort of saying these words at the end of the day, which is also important. And then creating not the long form research reports, but creating the toolkits and creating the little infographics and the things that people will see online, and the 30-second bites that people are gonna take and use and hopefully do something with.
Well, and I think about those 30-second bites. I go back to USA Today when they first published the infographics in the 90s in the newspaper, and everybody was mocking and deriding them, right?
Oh yeah.
And now that's a preferred mode of delivering smart ideas. And it's an entirely different way to say, how do I use good data visualization or good storytelling skills to create a graphic that explains a sophisticated concept?
Yeah, 100%. And I was working on that even earlier today. Is taking some of our recent research, and instead of having paragraphs of text associated with tables and maybe associated with some sort of bar graph or line graph or something.
And maybe a few footnotes or something there too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so how to change that into an infographic that maybe has like a one sentence summary somewhere along the side, but the core of the message is right there in that graphic. And the good thing with that is the fact that people can take it and they can share it in social media, and that's the way that people are going to see so many of these things. I envision most people are going to see the results of our thought leadership research through bits on LinkedIn, not through reports that Sherm puts together, live on our website, and require people to come to the website, go to the page, and download it. I just don't think that's how they're going to consume that.
Especially if those reports are gated now, right? People are going to be more hesitant to give away their information because they're like, okay, what am I trading in exchange for this? I don't know if I want
Right.
this 50-page report. And so I look at the long form, whether it's a white paper or a book or any other long form piece. That's once you've gotten permission and lean in from your audience, someone who wants to know more, who really
Yep.
wants to do the deep dive. Many people may look at the infographic and say, yep, got it. Thank you. That's what I need.
Yeah, and that's how we're looking at it, especially if to create a nice polished long report is going to take you a heck of a lot longer than putting a couple of graphics together. I mean, where's the benefit there? A lot of times I don't see it. Now, that being said, there are certainly topics that need the long form, that need that level of detail, that somebody can go in and look for the very specific answer to the question that they're interested in. But by and large, they're going to look for us to digest the things that we have done, to think about what's the important component of it, what's the storyline associated with it, and just give that to them.
If you are enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about the podcast, please leave a 5-star review and share it with your friends. We are available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all major platforms, as well as at leveragingthoughtleadership.com. So, how much of the work and work product are you creating and responsible for translating research versus how much of your role is curation, helping pull in ideas from others or encouraging them to create?
As I say, in SHRM, we're doing a lot of the research, and we're doing going in the direction of new areas within HR. So I'm envisioning more in the future. It's going to be curation. At this point, I'm still sort of trying to establish myself as the okay. Here's the director of HR thought leadership. I look at I need some successes, and then I can. Frankly, I think then they'll probably trust me to be more in that organizer curator mode where I can bring up the most important things that other folks are doing.
Well, and you've used a concept twice implicitly that I want to call out. One with the vision document, where you said being able to share that with others, which is a form of socializing it around and getting buy in for where thought leadership sits in the organization, what it does, where it does not get involved, and how it becomes a good team player within SHRM as an organization, right? And then
Hmm.
there's the second level of socialization where you said, okay, when we put thought leadership out into the world, those people who find that infographic on LinkedIn, you want them to be able to share it to a colleague or mention it in a meeting. And so, this ability to socialize ideas seems like you're doing that both internal and external.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's entirely true and really important. That's not something I think earlier in my career that I would have thought about or recognized. And I'd like to think that, throughout your career, you're learning stuff, you're recognizing where you naturally go, and you can either continue to do those things, or you can see where the trends are, and then at some point sort of play against that. I'm more of a I can make my work kind of fit in wherever, and I have intentionally not done that here. This was what I needed to do was carve out what was mine, what was the HR thought leadership groups, and then again shared that around and made sure okay we're all on the same page with this, and then yeah, and that's an internal thing and an external thing.
So, from a meta perspective, not Meta, the Facebook company, but in a talking about thought leadership, what I find and the intersection with SHRM
Uh,
is when we have a conversation of what does a formal thought leadership function look like? Where does it sit? What is its responsibilities? I would say over the last couple of years, an interesting trend that I've seen is more and more organizations are hiring each week for people like you, director of thought leadership. And the organizations right now are having to navigate where does it sit, who's the
yeah,
champion, and then how does it play well as a corporate citizen with established roles.
yeah, and again we're actively right now sorting that out, and I would like to think okay thought leadership at SHRM, we can be the new ideas and kind of that kind of thing, and other folks can worry about sort of the deadlines and the project management stuff, and of course you just can't farm that out. You can farm it out, but you'll probably farm it out to your own detriment. Again, it's probably my natural tendency to not push a lot of things on the dates, and just to making sure stuff gets done. But that's important, and we'll have to continue to do that. So yeah, it's working with others, playing nice, but making sure that we do get things done. We do get things done in a timely manner, and making sure everybody's sort of on the same page with that. And I think as I talk about some of these other things, the other thing for us that I was told as part of thought leadership, it had to do with partnerships and partnerships with other organizations. And so there, we can talk about curation there even more broadly than what's internal to your own organization, because us as SHRM, and we're known as the HR Association, there are other organizations that are big and have nice reach that don't overlap with us at all, that they may be doing good research, and the bar associations may be doing good research, or the American Medical Association, and they may be doing like good workplace research that our members would never see. And then accordingly, their members would never see SHRM research, and trying to sort of figure that out from a partnership perspective as well, because that's a great way to extend our reach too, is find other organizations that are complementary but don't share the same audience.
And I think one of the things that comes to me time and again is many of the problems that are worth solving through thought leadership are too big for one individual or even one organization, even if you're a large organization to solve, right? So if we
Yeah,
talk about, future of work and what the workplace will look like, even as large as Sherm and influential as Sherm is, you're still just one voice in that conversation. It's a voice that needs to be heard, but the more that you can align with others through research and partnership, the better.
yeah, yeah. I think that that's right, and that's what is necessary. And when I look at new ideas and new directions that we can go, it's probably not just looking at, okay, what does the HR community think, and where does the HR community want to go, and what are useful things for them. It's going outside of HR, and figuring out, okay, well, where do the finance association, where do they think that we're going to go, and what's new and different for them, because at the end of the day, in organizations, we're all working together, and whether you're in HR, or you're in sales, or you're somewhere else in the organization, the good ideas may come from SHRM, or they may come from somewhere else, and it's a matter of taking it, figuring it out, and making it all work together.
So I want to, as we begin to wrap up, ask you a question and to jump a couple years back into the past in
Okay.
doing so. So I want you to envision yourself as you were responsible for the assessment process, doing thought leadership, but not aware that you were doing thought leadership and evolving that way. What advice would you give yourself at that point now that you've seen where this has led? So, how would you advise someone who's perhaps today doing thought leadership but not aware of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my first response is, for me, would have been, be aware of what you're actually doing. I was sort of going into the areas that I thought were interesting, and the areas that I thought were underserved. And so that's sort of where I was filling the niche there. But what I find is, there are lots of things and lots of areas in whatever team that you're on that need to be done. And you can wait for somebody to say, yes, this is your responsibility, you can go ahead and do it, or you can just sort of start working on it. And that's how I ended up here. And again, it wasn't intentional, but if I'm going to ask for permission to do something, that's going to take too long. And then more voices are going to want to be involved than ever would have been involved before. And so, do it, look outside of where you currently are. So, again, as head of exam development, it ended up where I thought I could be most useful was dealing with folks on social media, which is definitely not exam development. Crafting marketing messages, dealing with folks in communication, how to email effectively to potential candidates. Again, definitely not exam development. Was areas that the team needed. And so, did that serve me well? I don't know. People said, Mark, you're not doing exam development. That's your job. But I think what I was doing was playing the role that needed to be played in the team, while exam development was still getting done. So I look back on that whole process in two ways. One, I wasn't doing my job, but two, I was doing the job that needed to be done.
Well, and with that, I have spoken to many people like you who have seen a gap and gone to fill it and then realized, oh, I'm solving problems and I'm practicing thought leadership without even realizing
Yeah,
what
oh
I
yeah,
was doing, right?
oh yeah,
And that ability to look behind you, it's easier to see the red thread when you look behind rather than to look ahead and go, oh, this is what I'm doing and where I'm going, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. In the moment, I certainly wouldn't have said, "Oh, I'm engaging in thought leadership. That's what I'm doing." Oh, crazy. I wouldn't have said that.
So, Mark, I want to thank you for taking time today and stopping by to talk about your transition into the world of thought leadership. And I wish you and Sherm a whole lot of success. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can look us up, SHRM, so shrm.org, and then you can feel free to contact me. You can just email me directly, mark.smith@shrm.org.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you.
If you're interested in organizational thought leadership, then I invite you to subscribe to the OrgTL newsletter. Each month, we talk about the people who create, curate, and deploy thought leadership on behalf of their organizations. Go to the website orgtl.com and choose Join Our Newsletter. I'll leave a link to the website as well as my LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing what you thought of the show.